Mahesh Bhatt, you all, I need no introduction. Hemant Chaturvedi may need an introduction, not because his creativity is any less, but because he was behind the camera and he is a man of great passion and integrity, a great eye, one of the top cinematographers once upon a time with films like Company, Maqbool, Maqdi, a few others. And then he gave it all up and for 7 years traveled across India to all the single-screen auditoriums, various Parsi cemeteries, and documented that decaying world which represents a certain idea of India in its modern and contemporary avatar. There's a wonderful exhibition at the Open Palm Court. If you haven't visited it, last day tomorrow, please do give it a go. Sunita Bansal and Mahesh Bhatt have together the relationship with U.G. Krishnamurti, a very unique thinker. I won't call him, though people said he's an Indian guru, but I think he also, as most of us who know him, was against the concept of some kind of enlightenment or realization that there is a spiritual great ending to our life. And so in a sense, he's been termed more, I read it somewhere, maybe in a foolish page somewhere, an anti-guru, but I don't think that's also equally relevant. He's a fine thinker. He hasn't got the kind of awareness as his namesake Jiddu Krishnamurti, who was also rejected a certain spiritual path at the earlier stage of his links with the Theosophical Society, but then he got into that same framework, even though he also took forward the need to continue the questioning and never be satisfied with an answer. Sunita Bansal is a scholar who's written a book which will be shown, a copy of it at least. It's a new book on the relationship between Mahesh Bhatt and U.G. Krishnamurti. I am who I am, so let's leave it. I still remember, I will say this, I remember the first time I ever got up in my life to speak. And I was so, I didn't know why I should tell the world who I am. So I was standing for some designation in London School of Economics, full audience, double this size. And I was asked to introduce myself and tell why they should vote for me. And I said, shivering, because I am who I am. And that was my only first speech. And after that, I learned to speak maybe. So we will start our panel in a few minutes. After that is the screening of a new wonderful DCP version of Zakhm. Pooja Bhatt will introduce this film of hers. And it's I hope those who have seen it will sit to see it again. And those who haven't, it's a wonderful National Award-winning film. And I don't know what more I can say at this moment. So before much ado, let us begin. And I'll invite to the stage Mahesh, Sunita, and Hemant to please join me. While they are finding their way, the website, which is on where all the India Studies knowledge base is accumulating, is for the first time you will get access to 16 of the world's major research categories which we have conceptualized to understand India Studies. So cinema as a critical educational resource is the driving force. Search Mahesh, search anything. Amitabh Bachchan. Okay, just quickly before. Okay, leave it for some other time. Let's start. Well, we'll start with each individual concept. This is the cover of the new book which is coming up. which Sunita Bansal has written on the relationship between U.G. Krishnamurti and Mahesh Bhatt. But you can see it later. Hemant, why don't you start? And as you say, and as you believe, you are not a spiritual person in the traditional sense, but each person who is trying to find themselves, being true to the nature of their inner voice, trying to come to terms with why am I here? How can I be true to the person and the consciousness that I am? How can I sustain this journey with joy and with a sense of relentless determination? You are following that path. And yet at the same time, you say you don't have a spiritual streak in you. Do you see them to be separate, or you know that they are the same, but you don't need to highlight one or the other? Or is there something else?
I guess there are several definitions of the word spirituality.
Yes.
They can be textbook definitions or they can be experiential definitions. I think for me, it's more an experiential definition where the calm that has come over my extremely irritable nature over the years has been a consequence of this. Working in the Bombay film industry for 30 years, it brought me to that point of being extremely impatient, extremely frustrated with people and things and situations. And I think that's one of the things that prompted me to move away from that profession. And when I decided to do, what I've been doing now for 10 years, of being alone and I have this exhibition running here which has some bizarre statistics in terms of how much I've traveled and what I've done. Someone asked me do I ever get bored? I said, no. I said, every day is just a voyage of discovery, and when you have a voyage of discovery, there's no chance of you being bored. And I do it because I like it, and I think it was very difficult to explain to this young audience that day that you can do things because you enjoy them and for no other purpose. Considering I think everything has been self-financed, everything is self-motivated. If I get up in the morning and decide to do this, I go ahead and do it. And no one's telling me to do this. I'm doing it because of... I was telling Neville a few minutes ago that during my film career, there was a co-worker, there was an actor on the set who once asked me, gushingly, she said, Hemant, are you spiritual? So I said, I think that's an observation that you should make, not a claim that I can. You know, if I say I'm spiritual, I think it's the most arrogant thing anyone has ever said. If you tell me that you think I have a spiritual personality, I'll think about it. But I think parallelly, I think the day I discovered, so I'll be honest here, since all these discussions have been really honest and what I heard yesterday, I have battled depression for 20 years. And it's about 2017 that I discovered that the only thing that makes me happy is when I start the engine of my Jeep, load my suitcase, and I'm off on the road. There are times that I've started a journey of 5 days and come back after 82 days. It's that kind of, whimsy that I allow myself, where the fear of being alone at home, which I've lived alone for some 36 years now, prompts me to go ahead and do things that I wish to do. And luckily, I was in a position to go ahead and do them. In another experience is the number of yatras I've done, the Amarnath Yatra.
Sorry for interrupt, but it's very important, this point, because this is at the heart of any potentially spiritual journey, that your greatest fears, your greatest pains, potential sufferings, instinctively you find mechanisms to transform them into something which is positive, allows your mind to blossom, your creativity to blossom. The pain doesn't go, the suffering doesn't have to go, but they move together parallelly. And by allowing that, that's the journey that has to be sustained. So that's an example.
So I think being gifted depression was the greatest gift I ever got. It allowed me to go ahead and, find mechanisms, as he says, as the term he uses, to drag myself out of these situations. I don't go to psychiatrists, I don't take pills. I have complete belief in the energy that I generate for myself to be able to surmount these problems. I have done the Kailash Yatra, the Amarnath Yatra, the Kedarnath Yatra. I have traveled alone now for some 75, 80,000 kilometers across all my projects. Someone once asked me what kind of inspirations I have. I said, on all these yatras, For example, on the Amarnath Yatra, I met this ascetic who had one leg. And at that day at Panchatarni, it had rained and there was mud and she had crutches. And I felt bad for her and I went up to her and said, Didi, aapke liye main ek ghoda kar दूं पहलगाम तक? She said, नहीं बेटा, मैं 35 साल से ऐसे ही एक टांग पे आती हूँ और यही मेरी श्रद्धा है भोलेनाथ के लिए. आज आपने घोड़ा मुझे दे दिया तो भोलेनाथ क्या सोचेंगे? So I've met so many of these people. I've been to about 15 Kumbh Melas where I get into conversations with the single Babas, not the Mutt wale Babas or the Akhada wala Babas. And someone asked me that, who are the real Babas? This is that man walking alone with a kamandal and a blanket. That is the real Baba. And the fact that people who have nothing still have so much because they have the goal of a blessing, from an energy that they respect. And that energy is what allows them to come again and again and again. And this lady has walked 3 days. So the average Amarnath Yatra for a fit and able person is 3 days. She spends 40 days walking the Amarnath Yatra every year on one leg and 2 crutches.
And there's another very important part which India, more than most other countries, understand. The concept of dua and blessings. Now, they're not real. They are the intangible forces which are either protecting us or nurturing us. And there's also bad-dua and the enemies. And they're always fighting on our behalf. And these are actual forces which are always in play in all our lives. It's up to us to have faith in that or not to have faith in that. And that's an issue which comes with time and age and experience. But this concept of the blessing and the dua is where the West lost out to some extent, because they've lost faith in that to some extent. Our faith also borders on the superstitious and many other parts, so there is a double-edged sword, but that's on the dua side. Okay. Sunita, you are, I assume, an academic as your vocation. Is that correct, or am I wrong to call you that?
No, that's not correct at all.
What is the correct?
I do not like to call myself an academic.
What would you like to call yourself?
I'm just a writer.
Okay.
I simplify scriptures, so that's what I do. I'm a medium that simplifies scriptures and makes them, palatable to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's working. It was working for him.
So, yeah. So basically, you have been like a mediator between Mahesh and UG Krishnamurti. Could you expand on that for us, please? And what has been your role and how have you evolved as a human being in that process as an individual?
Okay, that's another something which is not true, because I basically met Mahesh when I started publishing UG Krishnamurti's books. And I was the only publisher who published them. And Mahesh was surprised that I had the guts to publish them, because UG being UG would be like, demolishing all the gods and godmen and everything. And publishers would be scared to publish him. I wanted to publish them, and that's how we got in touch and we became friends, and he would write forwards for all the books. And that's how I also understood UG, because once I read one book, I could see what he's saying was sense, that was something that was resonating with me, and I felt that, yeah, here's a guy I would like to publish. It was very much.
Sort of share the essence of what you have imbibed about UG?
It was something that, I felt was resonating. It was not so much as me imbibing. It was something like the Buddha did. It was something very simple, talking about impermanence, talking about detachment, and talking about nothing being there. And, what exactly he would tell people was no gods, no religion, literally like that. And that's essentially something what our own, Hinduism also talks about. The Vedas talk about the same thing. But UG was saying it differently. He was speaking in our language. For Vedas, you would have to study and then ultimately understand what exactly is being said. Not right in the beginning. UG would tell you right on your face, that there are no gods. So that was something, which was literally a distillation of whatever our so-called religion is all about.
And the credibility of his force when he would make those statements, did it resonate?
It resonated with me because I felt the same. So it was something like somebody had given my thoughts voice. That made me very happy, and I happily published his books. And I met Mahesh, and he was going through a lot of, turmoil in his life. And so our relationship was that we would be talking about things, certain things he would not probably understand, and he had given me this liberty to tell him off and tell him that what you're saying is rubbish. This is not so. This should be like this, right? So he had given me that kind of liberty, and so we had that kind of relationship where I could tell him that no, what you're saying is not okay. This is not what UG would say. So that's how the whole thing developed, and the book also happened like this because the book happened because he was jotting a lot of stuff while he was with UG. He was and those were tiny little paragraphs about what he felt and so on. And he just showed me those pages, and I said they would make a beautiful book. And because I see books everywhere, because being a writer, I can make a book out of anything
so
at all.
a publisher and a writer.
Yes, I was a publisher. So I can make a book out of anything. It's one of those things. So I told him this will make a fantastic book. And of course, he wouldn't believe me. He said, okay, you go ahead and do it. And he had given me just about 20,000 words or something. And I told him that you have to pad it up a bit. And then when he started padding, that was interesting. He would say the same thing, He would be just quoting UG verbatim, And earlier he would be quoting Osho. So then I had to literally scold him a bit. And I would say that, where are you? You were quoting Osho earlier. Now you're quoting UG. So where the hell are you? What happened? And that he understood. So I give him credit that, even if I yell at him, he takes it. And he listens to me.
You're stressing this yelling a bit.
Yes. I mean, on text, however much we can yell.
Is there a reason for that?
No, because I treat him like a child, He behaves like a child. He has little tantrums. He has a thing, He once actually told me that, in your presence, I remember my mother. So since that day, I felt that, yes, I could yell at him. If he takes, this is what he thinks about me, I take that liberty of telling him off. So he actually listened to me, and he started then talking about what he felt and what he went through, when he met UG and so on and so forth. And then when he started talking, oh my God, one couldn't stop him. From 20,000 words, it's like close to 80,000 words now.
So he found his voice.
Oh my God,
his
yes.
Own voice.
Yes. And also, the book has gone into press, and yesterday he sends me another little piece and says, can you please insert it into the book? This is how he is. It's opened up some gates. It's flooding. And he's very happy. He's very happy. Look at him smile. He's very happy because of the venting that he could do.
I think he's mastered the smile without smiling sometimes. I think.
No, he's genuinely happy because he could say a lot of stuff, which was, and he was reminiscing, and he would think about so many things. I mean, I think he's happy.
No. Mahesh, would you like to, this first phase where you meet UG at the early days and leaving Osho to some extent, searching for something that you are searching for.
Take this.
Take this. This is, yeah. So the question is that the first steps that you took, first they were towards Osho, then towards UG. You were searching for something because probably what you had and what you were facing and the circumstances were not satisfying you. Why was Osho linked? Because he was famous and other film fraternity members had gone to him and you thought that something would emerge? Or did you study Osho's teachings before going to him? Or was it just by chance you met him? What was the manner by which that first meeting occurred? What were the circumstances?
I think when I look back at my life, now at 77, I remember one night I was 19 and I used to stay in Mahim, Carroll Road. And in the middle of the night, I would sneak out because I was suffering from what people used to describe as insomnia because I couldn't sleep. They called it an affliction. I thought nothing wrong with it. If I don't sleep, I don't sleep. And so I went to the Mahim Dargah to buy a cigarette. And I remember there was a small group of people, and there was a guy sitting down there. He used to be called Zulfi Chacha. And I heard him say, Ya Allah, takleef de. Ya Allah, takleef de. So I was curious. I said, what the hell is this? कि दुआ मांग रहा है मगर बोलता है तकलीफ की दुआ मांग रहा है. So I went there and I stood amongst those guys, and they were almost beggars and people who were not the people who belonged to what was our state of society. So they were a little uncomfortable to see a young boy, I was 19, standing there. And he looked at me, he said, ये हमारा ही है. Back, please. हमारा ही है. He made me sit down. And then he said, Ya Allah takleef de, Ya Allah takleef de. बोल. So I said, ये क्या दुआ है? Ya Allah takleef de. ये कैसी दुआ है? And then he said something which stayed with me. He says, बेटा दर्द जगाता है. दर्द जगाता है. अगर तेरे अंदर वो दर्द नहीं होता ना तो सोया होता एयर कंडीशन कमरे में जैसे बाकी सो रहे हैं. तो दुआ मांग कि या अल्लाह तकलीफ दे, या अल्लाह तकलीफ दे. So that night I joined in that fellow, Ya Allah takleef de, Ya Allah takleef de. And something went, as you said, duas work, but duas work, something seemed to have worked. But it was actually my adventure in the beginning of the 70s. We were in the flower children, Berkeley and LSD had just exploded, and it was fashionable to, the Westerners started coming to India looking for our God-men to find the answers. It was LSD that hurled me into the mystical space. It was a chemical induction of substance into my bloodstream. I was a normal middle-class boy with normal dreams of making it some way in life to make a living. And that gave me a taste of something which was sensual, of a different kind. It has nothing to do with alcohol. It was not a thing that numbs you. It wakes you up. It just woke me up to every living thing. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. And it lasted for almost 18 hours, where you could feel the plants breathe. I remember one experience on LSD. I was sitting under a tree, and the tree was shedding its leaves, and I could feel the physical discomfort and the pain of the tree parting with its leaves. I remember that distinctly. It was that made me look for answers in the books. And I read in the books of these guys around. And that's when I read Rajneesh. He was not called Osho at that time. He was called Bhagavan Shri Rajneesh. And he was not such a big guy at that time. He was in Pune. And he was, at that time, had only one film person who was his devotee, was Mr. Vijayanand, the great Vijayanand. And so I read him, and I found parallels to what he was talking about. And all that drove me to him was the need to make what I had experienced on LSD last forever. Somehow to make that experience last forever. And so I went there. For 2.5 years, I used to meditate 5 hours a day, read every book from cover to cover, became a parrot, mouthed all those phrases, but deep down, nothing changed. I was insecure, jealous, petty, competitive like anybody else.
What about all the sexual appetites which get...
I was not particularly into that carnal phase that was being lived out there, and it was something which was kept exclusive for the Westerners. That's what I realized. it was a matter of curiosity, but it did not draw me in. Because once you have had LSD, it is a different kind of sensual experience, which is much more beyond the sexual gratification. But then it would always bring me back down. And then I touched a live wire. It was a catastrophe, my encounter with U.G. Krishnamurti. It was accidental. And I was went to a shooting, and one guy, I was reading a book of U.G. Krishnamurti called The Awakening of Intelligence. And one guy walked up to me, he said, "Oh, can I have a look at the book?" He said, "There's another Krishnamurti who comes to India. Would you like to meet him?" I said, "What does he say?" He says that he says something completely bizarre, different. Would you like? I said, "Fine, the more the merry." So since I was shopping around in the spiritual supermarket, I went and met Yuji, and the first thing he said to me, I remember the meeting with him was like meeting a beloved. I saw a face, and that face eclipsed everything. There was a staring silence that tore into my guts. To even today, as I talk, I feel that moment. He was there at the top of the staircase. It was a wooden staircase. There was a center of tobacco. It was in Mirepala, next to a cigarette manufacturing plant. There were footsteps. He was there in light, and I had to walk through darkness, go towards him. And he just gestured, and he said, "Maybe." And the first thing he said, that I would rather be called a fraud than a God man. If you have come to look for enlightenment, you have come to the wrong door. There's nothing like enlightenment. And with that began my relationship, and he tore into every idea, every religious idea which I had memorized, which I had picked up from the spiritual market. And he said, "That's what they are saying. What do you have to say, buddy? What do you have to say?" And I discovered all that I was saying was what they were saying. And then he said, "You'll have nothing to say because there's nothing to say. You will never know. You'll never be able to put your finger and sum up life. You cannot, nobody can sum up life." And with that began my relationship. And then I never looked at him like a guru. I never looked, and that's what perhaps I became more of his friend. He was my father. He was one of the most, so much so that when he was dying in 2007, the most creative work if I've done in my life was when I sat down there and I wrote about the last days of U.G. Krishnamurti, where I just was recording, like you went there and recorded all those studios, theaters in DK. All I was seeing was this man going through the throes of death. And he said to me way back in time, "Mahesh, there's nothing sacred about me. When I die, I will die like a garden slug or a field mouse, like a leaf dropping. There's nothing exceptional."
Well, look.
So I'm left with a resounding echo of, I don't know. I really don't know. I've had sensuous, mystical experiences, yes. I have tremendous highs. But do I know anything more than anybody in this auditorium? I would be honest enough to say, I don't know.
Well, I have a radically different position, which is not really that relevant at this moment. But the reason for this panel, when I named it Passionate Detachment, it's been something that I coined nearly 30 years ago. And the transformation for most of us, and unlike what Mahesh is saying, that we don't know, we do know, we just don't know enough to make it all fit together in a cohesive, meaningful sense. It's like India. We all think we know India, we all think we are Indian, but the moment you go deeper into its diversities, you realize how little we do know. But more than that, for me, one essential transformation which has to happen in all of us is when our passions sort of transform into compassion. That whole transition period where suddenly that all-consuming passion that we have for whatever we may care about, it could be our loved ones, it could be for our work, it could be for an idea which consumes us, and slowly, and that passion is rooted in a selfishness, not selfishness necessarily in a negative sense. Selfishness is essential for any selflessness to emerge later on. It's a transition. It cannot happen in isolation. Similarly, the transformation of passion into this compassionate form where everything starts resembling how does it affect everything else in this world? And more than humans, for me, it was more than humans, because most of us who go to animals or go to nature or go to what is beyond the human, sometimes it's out of losing respect for humanity as a whole, not losing respect for human beings as individuals, but losing respect for human beings when they become part of a collective. That's a very different thing. Most of us are very different than our true individual self when we are part of groups or part of collectives or part of systems. So that transformation from that deeply held, selfish, unrelenting desire where our passion can build, create, burst through, destroy, and then suddenly you can see it's disseminating with different roots. You recognize the fragility of all life. You recognize how much happier, how much more fulfilling it would be if someone else got that joy rather than you getting that joy. It's like a parenthood. A father, a mother, their greatest joy is to give it to their children. And that transformation, to some extent, is part of this journey for all of us. So I like each of you to share with me, if you can, when you felt, if at all it has been, this transformation of the passionate into the compassionate, where that detachment begins.
So I have something in common with you, which is, I think LSD taught me compassion. It taught me how to see. It taught me how to appreciate textures. It forced me to, in my waking life, try and recreate what I was going through for those 18 hours several times over several years. It taught me how to appreciate silence. I still remember once sitting by the Kamshet lake for about 14 hours with one trip inside me. And all I could feel and hear was the ripple of the lake on the rocks, the birds in the distance, the blade of grass that moved. And to be more romantic, even that bug that has, taken off. And in my waking life, I realized that that is the world I want to live in, and that is the world I want to create. So it taught me compassion with my crew. I mean, working in Bollywood is not easy. So when you have 200 people, I realized that nothing works better than kindness. If I am kind to an assistant and make him believe that what he's doing is the most important thing, it is very likely that he will go home and not get drunk and not beat his wife, because he looks forward to coming back to work with me. Because I'm tripping and I'm enjoying it and I want you to be part of that trip. I think that's what the transformation was. I think it was 1996 when it started. And it opened my mind to music. It opened my mind to silence. It opened my mind to enjoying looking at things from a completely different point of view and keeping them going all my life.
Very lovely that you said it opens you up to music. It opens you up to silence. So essentially it's opening up to negation of whatever there is on one level. Sunita.
I hope she has an acid story as well. That'll be quite a panel.
I think I've missed that one, and my husband is right there. And I'd like to put in a request. Please organize some of this LSD stuff for me too. I really need it, I'm feeling a little lost. No experience to share. What to do?
I lived life without the LSD.
No, but these two guys, now I fall into temptation. What to do? So, Avdesh, please. That's it. Yeah. My transformation was not as switching off the transformation thing that's been happening here. It's been extremely gradual. I was always probably inclined towards spirituality, the kind of background I've come from, the kind of books I've been reading and writing. But I think marriage has a tremendous role to play. Because what happens is you leave one life and you enter another, which is totally contrary to your expectations, and it's like a culture shock. So what do, you know? So it's like, you know, when a person is cornered, when a scientist is cornered, you know, they make inventions, right? So when a person is cornered, they feel cornered, they try to find ways to get out of that. Unfortunately, I found spirituality helping me, writing about spirituality and thinking. And because of my background, it was easy.
Would you like to share any aspect of the marriage specifically, or you just want to keep it general?
How can I do that? My husband is right here. It's tough.
Would the husband like to make a comment on this?
You know, it's tough. I can't do that. You know.
Okay.
So you can
Only the last 10 years.
you can imagine. So this is marriage. I mean, in 40 years, the last 10 years he observed me is. It just goes to prove what marriage is all about.
You have gone back, we thought, and in 40 years, you've only been awake for 10 years. That is what
It just proves. It just proves. So please do. So what happens is, you know, you marriage, family, children, a whole lot of stuff. And then I started my own company, writing, creating books, all that. So I created a world for myself. It's like, you know, you create a safe space, a space where you escape to from life. So that was not LSD, but my work became my LSD, and that was the passion I still have. And you know, I create a number of books every year. So that, yeah, that's what I'll tell you about Mahesh. So that is where, you know, that space that I created in my marriage. In that space, I grew, and that's where my spirituality has come from.
given or accepting.
Very, yes, because you understand so many things, and you understand impermanence, you understand whatever is happening today is not going to last. There's lots of things. Forgiveness is there, just many, many things. And I also wrote a book about Yashodhara, because Buddha's wife, Yashodhara, I'm digressing, that she did the same, you know. Buddha left to look for enlightenment, and he struggled. 6 years he did stuff that he realized after 6 years was not okay, so he started on something else. Whereas the wife, she was at home, she was with the child, she was a single mother, she was living at home with in-laws and stuff, and yet she went on and she got enlightened on the same day as Buddha did. So that is something which again resonates with me. Staying at home, creating your own space and living in that space, entering that space whenever you find that, you know, you feel attacked or you feel threatened, you enter that space. That is something we can create. So I come from that side of, you know, I mean, unfortunately, no LSD for me. This is something which I wanted to read. This is Mahesh's, you know, these are excerpts from this book. And Mahesh was affected by Yuji's death, and that was something which he talks about a lot. And I started the book from that point, but I'll just read one section of it. This is, he calls it The Last Fire, and The Last Fire. And yeah, and so it goes like this. These are Mahesh's words, by the way. He says, I did not arrive at truth through scriptures, philosophies, or spiritual ambition. I arrived at it by sitting beside a dying man who refused every story human beings create to escape the fear of being nothing. In the last 8 days of U.G. Krishnamurti's life, something happened to me that I still cannot fully name. I walked into that room with decades of belief, culture, identity, all the inherited furniture of a human life, and found myself standing beside someone who had burnt through everything human beings cling to. For more than 30 years, 32 in truth, he had been tearing down every fairy tale of mine, every belief, every spiritual crutch, every story I used to shield myself from life. He dismantled them without mercy, and I stayed because something in me knew he was right. And when the end came, he summoned me. The man who had lived entirely on his own terms wanted to die on his own terms, and he handed that responsibility to me. Of everything I gained in those 3 decades, this was the real earning. The most subversive man I had ever known The man who refused every illusion trusted me with his death. When I first saw him lying there, famine thin, reduced to skin and bone, the words rose inside me without permission. My savage lord, not a deity, not a guru, not an elevated being, but a man stripped to his elemental truth. He had asked everyone to leave, only I remained, with Larry and Susan. No disciples, no ritual vigil, no sentimental theater around dying. He had stopped eating, stopped drinking, stopped negotiating with life. The body wants to go, he said, and he stepped aside without fear or nostalgia. A philosopher friend came once, unable to bear the stillness, and asked him, "If you won't try to live, why don't you just kill yourself?" Yuji looked at him with a weary clarity that cut through every philosophical gesture. "It's not my body," he said. "I can't do that." In that single sentence, the I inside me, the entity I had protected, performed, carried for decades, buckled. Not my body, not my life, not my death. So that was the moment for him. So I wanted to share this from the book.
Let us open it up. We've got a few minutes. Any questions from anyone in the audience on anything?
Is the house recommending LSD?
Are we going
Sorry?
back to the LSD story?
He's recommending.
What is the question?
Is the house recommending
Can't hear.
Oh, should it be taken once in a lifetime?
Well, I don't think that this is a platform through which he or me are advocating that you should have LSD, because I just said that this happened in my journey, and he also happened to be in that kind of time frame where he experienced it. But it does have mind-altering impact, and it's not my opinion. You can go through the treasure box of man, and there are mighty giants who have in the West who have been who have tried this. There was one guy called Ram Das, Timothy Leary, and so they have. But I think, in fact, that's even something which UG debunks. We tore that apart. He says that's also a part of the mystical experience. It is nothing but a heightened sensual experience. It's an experience. And the body is not interested. What you are interested in is permanence. And it is not possible. The attribute of life is impermanence, and that is not acceptable to you. So the question me was, what took me there was to make the LSD experience which I have had permanent. Now I wanted to make it permanent through meditation. Meditation is various breathing techniques. Ultimately, the goal is to get there. Where? To that exalted state. And that exalted state, they say, is possible. If you follow us, do more of the same, it'll happen. I have seen people do that for a lifetime, crack up. It doesn't lead you anywhere. In fact, that's what U.G. Krishnamurti said. This is the real world that you have to live in. Go there, stand on people's toes, climb on their shoulders, make your living, sing your song, and go. If you want to choose your kind of comfort, there are dime a dozen in the show windows of life. Buy what you want. Go to any guru, go to any creed which gives you comfort. But what you're looking for, enlightenment, is permanence. A state of being of uninterrupted happiness is what you're seeking. That is just not possible. It's a fairy tale. Watch a movie, have a drink, tell yourself a story, sing that song, but it doesn't exist.
One possible path of enlightenment, that's seeking of permanence. Permanence is not integral to any kind of spiritual life. It's one aspect of it which is important, but this is not for me. Any other questions?
Why are we not seeing any kind of spiritual content in cinema? Because we are finding that the content is so much tasty and the West we are able to discuss But in India, I think the content is simply not there. Even the OTT platforms also we are finding they good quality.
What is it that you are calling spiritual? And how do you expect to find something so elusive on cinema? I like to, where did this expectation come from in you?
Well, they are able to show the religion, for example, Buddhism, etc.
So therefore, you are saying that religion has very little to do with spirituality. But that's where society is stopped at, no, Baba? Because spirituality is an individual experience which cannot be collectively shared. The religion can be collectively shared. So we can have cinema and art forms on religion and facets of religious thinking, religious action, religious iconicity. But the spirituality is for only you and your own personal dialogue with your own under ki awaaz. So it's very difficult for any creative form, whether it be painting, whether it be cinema, whether it be literature. And when it does come, then you have to write those great Bibles and Qurans and Gitas and Ramayanas, and in that find nuggets of spirituality. So I don't think you should be looking for spirituality in cinema, but fair enough. Any other questions?
And also, religion is totally different from spirituality. So there is a, yeah.
Yes, Poloji? Well, again, I'll let everyone else answer, but if you see in all our saints and gurus of India, none of them are rich. Some of them may have sought wealth during the process of their spirituality, but the Tukarams and the Nanaks and the Kabirs and the Chaitanyas and so many others, they have nothing to do with wealth. Spirituality is in the fiber of wanting to know yourself, being true to being born. मैं किसके लिए आया हूँ? How can I be true to this journey? And anyone else would like to respond to that?
I might just add to what he said, but might make some sense to what you asked. That I think I am very happy to have reached that plane, and this is not LSD. That was 20 years ago, and it's got nothing to do with that. Is the fact that I've managed to find a state of mind when I'm working, when I enter a place of beauty, which is in my eyes a place of beauty, which I am about to photograph. It can be a cinema, a cemetery, a person, a thing. The moment I get inspired, there is this rush inside of me that allows me to forget time, space, hunger, thirst, permanence, impermanence, and all I want to do for the next however number of hours it is to shoot that thing as best as I can and just fall down at the end of it. It's a hal, as I've discovered. There are certain cinemas and cemeteries I've been to where this has actually happened. I've spent 4 hours rushing into my mind, expressing it through my lens and feeling that exhaustion at the end of it without any sense of practicality. That is for me spirituality.
What Hemant is also saying is living in the moment, being so focused and dedicated to the present. In a way, it's like, for me, the most spiritual creature alive is a dog.
Neville. That's also a concept. The body lives in the moment. The body has to try to live in the moment. All theories about living in the moment is that's the mental gymnastics. The body, the heart,
mental gymnastics.
no, the heart doesn't. The heart doesn't have to think how to beat. If it stops to think, you're dead. So I'm saying the body is living from moment to moment. But what you're talking about, an attitude to living from moment to moment, that is another intellectual, so-called spiritual window through which you've been told to look at life to deal with pain.
That's not true.
Well, we can talk. You and me can talk about it on some other platform. Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyone else would like to? There's a gentleman there. Anyone else? Then that will be the last question. Aap pehle beta.
I want to ask, is spirituality the highest state a human mind can achieve?
No, okay. Sunita, would you like to answer that?
Spirituality is a thought process. You know, you start questioning things, you understand impermanence. And to make it sound very simple and also to connect Mahesh to it and his films, if you, I mean, everybody would remember the film Earth. That was a film where I thought the window was that the protagonist was not seeking the regular closure, you know, the romantic closure. What she sought was self recognition. To me, that was a spiritual window, that questioning. So it is a state of mind, it's a questioning state of mind, and the understanding of impermanence. That is the path of spirituality. And it's accessible to anyone and everyone.
Mahesh, would you like to answer him?
Well, spirituality, according to me, is nothing but heightened sensuality. Nothing else. Nothing else. You put it in some exalted they have created a hierarchy that on LSD or any heightened an artist chemically is perhaps programmed that way that he experiences things in a much more intense way. And as he said, "Hal aa jata hai aapko." And certain people do not live on that frequency. So that's all.
I think also where all of us will have different points of view, but we all have been brought up using the word radically differently. Especially we use many different languages, especially we come from different thought processes. For me, since childhood, the word spirituality was a very mundane, ordinary process. I was spiritual when I was playing football because there was nothing else in my life that mattered at that time. I was one of the few moments where you are fully occupied and all life seems destined only for that. When I was gambling, or I was horse riding, or I was dedicated in the most seedy little bookmakers in the back of a lead box, spending my last pennies. That was equally spiritual as well as with the finest beauty and nature and animals and love of human beings. So all of us are brought up with a very different understanding of that word. Obviously, we are talking about the mass understanding. Yes, we all aspire towards a spirituality because that's the cliche which we are trying to break down here, that it's not so simple. That spirituality has been put on this pedestal. There is no reason for that. It should be a daily function of everything we do, as Hemant says. But it's a process. And how we sustain that process is where the spirituality comes in.
Can I say something?
Of course,
It's not a question. But I think what I've understood.
You want a mic?
I don't think your mic works. Neville, hello. No, it does not work. I think my voice is quite loud enough.
She's from the
I
theatre.
think what I've understood through my life at least, and what everybody says.
You can face the audience.
When you do a task with your whole soul and focus and concentration, when we make a film, the whole film set gets together and does one thing together. When we do a play together, when we're sitting here together, that is spirituality. Because everybody is focusing on the same thing, on the same result. And you're doing it with such purity and with such simplicity and with such intense concentration. And that, whatever it may be, that to me is spirituality. And I think that you can't get more spiritual than that.
All right, last questions. We are closing up. Yes, oh, the young lady, of course, please.
Neville, I want to say this, is that I think each one of us must introspect, must go into one's own self to know what we want out of life. Unless we do that, any external inducement will not make you happy. If you want to be happy and you're unhappy inside, no external influence inducement can make you happy. You must know your own self. If you're hankering after wealth and pelf, then No matter how much spiritual mandirs and all you go to, you will not be a happy person by going to mandirs and masjids. It's not going to bring you happiness. It's what you want from inside is what you need. Peace, happiness, joy out of small things in life is what brings you happiness. Then external inducement will come to you. Spirituality will come to you. But otherwise, nothing is going to touch you. That is what my feeling is in life. If you're an unhappy person, you'll spread unhappiness to everybody. You must try to be happy inside before you can spread that happiness to other people. Introspection is very important.
Very good.
Zakhm. And thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Sunita. Thank you, Hemant. And Pooja will introduce Zakhm in a few minutes. Thank you, everyone.
When I saw your eye,
आपको कौन सी बेचैनी लगी है? Hemant, they are not like the projectionists you photograph, that's for sure. This is a new generation. Anyway, before the projectionists get ahead of themselves, I like to call on stage Pooja Ben. Aye, Pooja, who produced Zakhm, will say a few words and introduce the film in her own way.
Well, when he's here, it's difficult to introduce Zakhm, please. I think I should start with my mortal fear when he told me that he's making this film and he wanted me to play this role, which was the role of his mother and my grandmother, Shireen Bhatt. I said no, because I was terrified at the thought of even attempting to play this part. She was a woman who impacted my life greatly. She was a Muslim woman who made me fall in love with Jesus Christ, took me to Siddhivinayak temple every Tuesday, taught me to cross the road, taught me to make the sign of the cross. A very tough chick. And to play her was intimidating. So I even contacted Revati when I was shooting in Chennai, and I said, you know, there's this film that my father's planning. It's going to be his last movie. Because he had said that I have no desire to make movies after this because I performed to one person in the audience, and that was my mother. And she'd passed away. So he said, I don't have the desire to perform anymore. So Revati was quite amused by my call, but before she could say yes or no, he just looked at me and he said, Pooja, there's no option, you're doing it. So I showed up terrified, feeling absolutely inept. And I think when I feel absolutely inept, then something comes forth. But you're going to watch a film that had the rare distinction of being banned in Saudi Arabia for being anti-Muslim and for being banned in Mauritius for being anti-Hindu. How a film can be both anti-Muslim and anti-Hindu, I don't know. But this is that one rare film. It was also a film that our very esteemed Asha Parekh ji, who I have great regard for, was a little wary about passing. So she recommended to the revising committee, and they in turn refused to give it a certificate either. And then my father and me came and camped here in Delhi all those years ago to show it to the powers that be. And I must say that finally it was an NDA government that not only passed it, but gave it an award, a national award for best film on national integration. And I salute the spirit of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and I hope that that continues, because there is self-censorship now. People are wary of even thinking things. So Zakhm is one rare movie. I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and he pulled this performance out of me. So grateful to MM Cream for giving me a song, giving us a song that has immortalized me, Gali Mein Aaj Chand Nikla. And the glorious Kunal Khemu, without who Ajay Devgan would never have won his national award as an actor. So I do hope that there will come a time when other filmmakers can dare to make a film like Zakhm. Would this film be made today? Would it be allowed to release today? I don't know. You watch it. You be the judge. But this is the India that my father lived. This is the India that courses through my veins. And I'm so proud because I saw my name on applicant for certification For me, that makes me more proud than the fact that I happen to be in it. So over to the man who created it, lived it, and traumatized us all through this process.
Well, the movies that gave me a rebirth after the wasteland years, which were the 20s, the 30s was Arth, Saransh, Janam, Naam, I think, and was a commercial hit, but it was still a film which was loved by people, those who loved Arth and Saransh. And then Daddy was that film. Then, of course, I made movies like Ashiki, Dil Ka Mantari, which made my people who loved the earlier kind of cinema feel that Mahesh Bhatt has sold his soul for 2-3 pieces of silver. And yes, I did sell my soul for 3 pieces of silver because I wanted to deal with the real life. And I went through a intoxicating 90s. In the first half of 90s was high. One after the other, I had blockbusters. It was Ashiki, Dil Hai Kamantani, Hame Rahi Pyar Ke, Sadak, and you name it. And then, of course, one film that you made, which was Tamanna, which got me some crumbs of glory, was the national award which you got for the best film on social issues, which was very bold of her to make that film. And then came a bit, what again say, the wasteland phase, where there was a kind of a downhill. And something was withering, the need to make movies was withering in me. I found that there was a disconnect between what my insides were saying and what I was doing. And I just couldn't pander to the needs of the times. And I'm the only man who's made 2 flops with Shah Rukh Khan. And I blame myself and nobody else for that. I was absent in those films, and so they didn't work. And my film with the great South Indian star Chiranjeevi did not work, though it was a remake of a Tamil hit called Gentlemen. It did not work. And so that something had withered in me. And somehow, before I hung my gloves, there was a need to sing that one song. And in 92, 93, Mumbai went through a most painful phase when the post-Babri Masjid demolition, there was riots on the streets of Mumbai. And we saw Mumbai, which we heard our parents, elders talk about before our birth in the partition time. And then that kind of really wrecked the psyche of a home from where I came, from a boy who came from a home which had a Hindu father and a Muslim mother. And we found that the fault lines which we thought had faded with time in free India was still intact. And then I discovered that now is the time for me to marry the story of India and then marry my personal story and tell a tale of what happens when these kind of biases explode externally and inside your house. So Zakhm is that story. And I'm very happy that in a way it gave me a catharsis. There was something which I had not brought out into the public about my mother's identity. She was, though she was a bindi adorning, Mangal Sutra wearing, woman who prayed to every icon. She had Ganesh, she had Shiva. She was the one who told me the stories of Ram and Hanumanji and Krishnji. She was the one who took me to the Mount Mary's Church, who, according to her, it was Mother Mary who gifted me to her. And that woman who actually was a symbol of what was a plural India, was something which I would wear on my sleeve like a glorious medal. And then I found that that was under fire. And I thought that was the time when the NDA was in power and the right-wing forces were emerging. And I felt that's the time to tell the story that is there, because if cinema is supposed to be a place where an individual can sing his song irrespective, because your constitution gives you the right to make the kind of film that you want to make, and irrespective of the collective consciousness which is going in one direction, you have the right to stand apart and sing your song. So this is the time to make it. And Pooja once again dared to produce it. And I distinctly remember, Pooja, if you remember, when we took that film to Karachi, where the Kara Film Festival with Zakhm, it was a kind of a withering, sketched out print. And there was a full house audience, and at the end of the film, they gave it a standing ovation. And I remember walking with pride there, and I said, it's only a country like India which can make a film like this. I come from a country which gives me the space to make a film like this. And I think that's what is the great heritage of India. And I said, I don't think Pakistan can make a film like this. And they conceded. So I think, as Pooja rightly said, having gone through the teething troubles, I would call them teething troubles with the censorship, after locking horns for 3 months, finally it was the magnanimity of the NDA regime at that time, which was headed by Mr. Vajpayee, to give it the award for the national award for film on national integration. And it gave Ajay Devgan a national award, and it gave me a glorious exit, and she got awards, and I got a Filmfare Award, and we also got a Screen Award. So,
And also I want to add that it didn't make money 26 years ago. People praised it but no one went to the theater. But the power of good work, relevant work, is that finally 26 years later, it gave me a windfall, because there was a company that bought Ajay Devgan's library, and they rightfully felt that his library was not complete without Zakhm. So if you're patient, then a good film will pay you. Not now, then 3 decades later, but it will.
thank you, that's all. The movie is there.
Thank you.